So, good afternoon, students. And today we will continue with our chapter. We were doing chapter 1, sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. And in this chapter, we are about to start the topic pollination. Though what is pollination and the types we have discussed, but let me start from the beginning, the pollination. So let me share my screen with you all. My screen is visible to all. Yes, through the chat box, you give me the reply. My screen is visible to all. Okay, fine. Yes. Okay. Yes, I got the remark. So students, let us first, once just we will briefly do the revision of what is pollination and the type, though already we have discussed. We all know, student, that pollination is definitely the transfer of the pollen grain from anther to stigma of the pistil. And how many types of the pollination did we discuss? Can anyone say? Just raise your hand so that I can unmute you. How many types of pollination we have discussed earlier? How many types of pollination we discussed? Okay, Shweta. Shweta, you can unmute yourself, Shweta.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Shweta, go ahead.
We have discussed three types of pollination: autogamy, xenotogamy, and xenogamy.
Okay. Autogamy, then geitonogamy, and we have also discussed allogamy. Okay, fine. Okay, Shweta, good. Now, based on the source of the pollination and the pollen, definitely the pollination is of three types: autogamy, which is the self-pollination, and geitonogamy and xenogamy. Now, both geitonogamy and xenogamy, these are the type of cross-pollination. And first of all, we will discuss the autogamy. What is autogamy? The self-pollination, that is when the pollens are transferred from anther to stigma of the same flower. So here you can see in this diagram, the pollen is definitely transferred from anther to stigma of the same flower. Okay. Now, student, the most important thing is that we will now also study that what are the different requirements for autogamy or self-pollination. So we have to discuss first, all of you, if in the flower with the exposed anther and the stigma, complete autogamy is rare. That means if the flower is exposed, the anthers are exposed, the stigma are exposed, then self-pollination is rare. Why? Can anyone say? Self-pollination is rare if the flowers are exposed. For that, the flower need to be closed. Do you agree? If the flowers are exposed, okay, Satyam, if the flowers are exposed, then what can be the problem? Yes, Satyam, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
If the flowers are exposed, Satyam, then what can be the problem?
Sir, there is a chance of cross-pollination and flowers try to take the pollen from other flower instead of his same flower.
Very good. The chances of cross-pollination increases while the chances of self-pollination decreases to much extent. Very good. So if the flower are exposed, if the anther and the stigma are exposed, then complete autogamy is a problem because the chances of cross-pollination increases. So this is the first requirement, that definitely the flower should be closed. And in this autogamy, the pollen release and the stigma receptivity is also, there should be a synchrony. That means there should be a proper time for the pollen release and the stigma receptivity. It is not like that the stigma is not ready to receive, and at that time the pollen is coming and sitting over the stigma. So the chances of self-pollination will decrease. Also, the anther and the stigma should be very close to each other. Otherwise, the chances of cross-pollination will increase and self-pollination will decrease. So what are the three conditions we have studied just now? First, the anther and the stigma, that it should not be open. If it is open, exposed, then the chances of cross-pollination increases. And there should be a proper synchrony between the pollen release and the stigma receptivity. And also the anther and the stigma should be enough close to each other. Now, remember student, two very important type of flower we have to study in this reference. One is the chasmogamous flower and one is the clistogamous flower. Let us first see what are these. What are chasmogamous and what are clistogamous? Say, the chasmogamous flower are the flower with exposed anther and stigma. That means this flower remain open all the time. You can see in the image also, which I have highlighted over here. This is a chasmogamous flower. So what is the feature of the chasmogamous flower? The feature of the chasmogamous flower is that they are always open. That means they're they have the exposed anther and the stigma. This is the feature of the chasmogamous flower. If the stigma, we can say the anther and the stigma is exposed, then which type of pollination will be promoted? Which type of pollination will be promoted? Khushi, unmute yourself. This question is for you. I repeat my question, Khushi. I repeat my question. I said that if the flower has exposed anther and the stigma, which type of pollination is promoted?
Autogamy.
If it is exposed.
Gitnogamy.
Yes, correct. Now, so you can very well see that this is a flower, chasmogamous flower, which are with the exposed anther and the stigma. Now, the next type of flower is clistogamous flower. See, in the image. Can you see any flower over here in the clistogamous image, which I have highlighted? In the clistogamous, you can respond through the chat box. In the clistogamous flower, can you see any flower in the figure, in the image? Very good. No. Yes. All the students have given the response. It's no. Very good. Yes. Why? Because they do not open at all. That means the flower remain closed. The anther and the stigma lies very close to each other and they are autogamous. That means they will do the self-pollination. So when the anther dehisces, the pollen can come in contact with the stigma for the flower for pollination, and this clistogamous assured that the seeds will be formed. That means the pollination will be there, the fertilization will be there, even if the pollinators are absent. That means the agent of pollination, if the agents of pollination are absent, then also the chances of fertilization is a sure phenomena. Okay? Is it clear to all that what is the difference between a clistogamous and the chasmogamous flower? So the chasmogamous flower remain open all the time. The clistogamous flower remain close all the time. That means they do not open at all. Is the two flower clear to all? Yes, student, through the chat box you can reply. Okay. Okay, all of you have responded yes. Acha, Aman, yes. Aman wants it to be explained once more. No problem. Yes, Aman, see. I repeat again. This is a casmogamous flower. The casmogamous flower is a flower which is open all the time. Okay. And the clistogamous flower are the flower which remain closed all the time. So the casmogamous flower, if it is open all the time, definitely it will promote which type of pollination? Cross-pollination. And the clistogamous flower will always promote the self-pollination because it is closed. Aman, now it is clear to you? Aman, now it is clear to you? Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, yes, Satyam has a question. Okay, just let me. Yes, Satyam, you can unmute yourself.
So what is example of clistogamous?
Yes, examples you can see over here. This is the Commelina plant. Okay, a single plant may also have the two type of flower. This image, which is highlighted over here, this image is present in our NCERT textbook also. Okay, this is Commelina plant. Commelina. Okay, it has both type of flower, casmogamous and clistogamous. So if it comes that which plant has the casmogamous flower and the clistogamous, you can very well say Commelina. Okay. Even there are other examples, Viola, Oxalis, but this image which is depicted in our NCERT also, this is the image of Commelina. Okay, Satyam? Okay. Okay, fine. Now we will come to definitely the cross-pollination. It is a transfer of pollen definitely from anther to stigma of another flower of the same plant. Remember, student, this is also a cross-pollination. Flower, plant is the same, but the flower is different. And if it is the same flower, then definitely it is a self-pollination. But here it is cross-pollination because the plant is same, but the flower is different. Okay. One very important thing, student, which you should remember over here, that this heterogamy is genetically similar to autogamy. Genetically similar to autogamy. Can anyone guess why it is genetically similar to autogamy? Why this plant is? Because it is functionally cross-pollination, but genetically it is similar to self-pollination. This is very important. And remember, student, in class 12, don't expect the direct questions that define a self-pollination or the cross-pollination like this. So this question is very important, that functionally deuterogamy is cross-pollination, but genetically it is self-pollination. Can anyone just share their view? If you can. You should, I think, because we have already done the explanation. Anyone? Okay, Shweta, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir, because uh, flowers are of the same plant.
Flowers are of the same plant. So it will be, you are supporting which statement? That it is functionally cross-pollination or genetically similar to autogamy?
Sir, genetically similar with autogamy.
Very good. You said yes, she is correct. That since the plant is the same, flower is different. So no matter the genetic constitution, the genotype will remain the same. And that is why we say that these plants are genetically similar to autogamy. That means it is genetically self-pollination, but it is functionally cross-pollination. Why we are saying functionally cross-pollination? Yes, Satyam. Now you justify this. Satyam, you justify this. Why we are saying functionally cross-pollination?
Because there is a transfer of pollens, so we need some pollinators.
Okay, we are using pollinators, definitely. Correct. That is, since the transfer is there from one flower to another, it is definitely a cross pollination. And here some agents of pollination, the pollinators are involved. Good, very good. Next, xenogamy. In the three image, this is a third image which we are going to discuss. In the first two image, you have seen that the plants were same, but here the plant is different. But it should be of the same species, definitely. So it is a process of transfer of pollen from anther to stigma, or we can say from one flower to another flower of different plant. Okay. Now, okay, students, any doubts in the three definitions of the three type of pollination? And any queries you have? You can. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Now, student, we are coming to the next portion, agents of pollination. That means these are definitely the factors which are promoting the pollination. First of all, the agents of pollination can be broadly classified into the two categories. One is the abiotic. Abiotic definitely means the non-living. And second is the biotic, which is the living. Among the abiotic agents, we have the wind and water. And the biotic agents include a wide range of organisms like insects, birds, bats, primates, arboreal rodents, the reptiles. Okay, so now we will see that how they are helping or how they are acting as a pollinators. Wind. Student, always remember some technical terms till now, till the level of your previous class. For pollinations, you were not accustomed or not used to some of the technical terms. If the pollination is done, if the pollination is done by wind, a special term is given to it, and that is anemophily. So at the level of class 12, you can expect these questions that what do you mean by anemophily? So these are the pollination which is done by the wind, and the more common biotic agent, because in our day-to-day life also we can see that this is the agent which can do the maximum pollination. And the wind pollinated flowers often have a single ovule in the ovary, and the numerous flower packed into an inflorescence. Now, student, this term in class 11 we studied inflorescence. Can anyone recall class 11 chapter morphology of the flowering plants? There we have come across the word inflorescence. Anyone? Okay, Shweta, unmute yourself.
Arrangements of flower in a tree, in a plant.
Okay, very good. Arrangement of flowers in a plant is called inflorescence. Yes, you can see, students, in this diagram, this is corn cob. Okay, you can see the tassels are stigma. In this, just let me enlarge it. Yes. You see, student, very minutely you observe this portion of the corn. This is the tassel. These are the pollens. Okay. These are the pollens. And now you see what happens. This area is the tassel, which is the pollen. Okay, got it? And these are the stigma and style which wave in the wind to trap the pollen grains. So that means these tassels, when the wind flow will be there, these tassel which will wave, and this will trap the different pollen grains. So these are the stigma. Okay, so these are the stigma, and when the wind flows, the pollen from the pollen comes and sits over this stigma. Okay, is it clear to all? So this is the area, we can say, with the exposed stigma which harbors or traps the pollen grain. So here one example of the wind pollination is done with the help of we can say wind pollination is achieved with the help of the pollinators, that is the wind. The pollination is achieved. Is it clear, student, this example? This example is clear? Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. Next. This part, student, is very, very important, that if suppose we have to promote the pollination by wind, that means wind pollination, then what can be the features or effective way, or what are the different adaptation? Always remember, student, in board exams you will get the questions in this form, that what are the different adaptation for promoting the wind pollination. So the flower should definitely produce a large number of pollen, because remember, student, in case of the dispersal by the wind, there is also a wastage of large number of the pollen, because the pollen they don't have a navigation map that I will be going and sitting over the stigma of this and this, because they don't know their pathway. So that is why a large number of pollen is to be released, so that the chances of failure can be compensated. Definitely, the pollen should be light and non-sticky. Can you guess what can be the advantage if the pollen is light in weight and non-sticky? Khushi, if the pollen is light, what can be the advantage?
It is easy to movable.
It is easy to move. Okay. Next, let me ask Aman. Aman, unmute yourself, Aman.
Yes, sir.
Aman, if the pollen is non-sticky, then what will be the advantage? If the pollen is non-sticky, what will be the advantage? Aman, didn't understood? Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. Unable to answer, no problem. Okay, Prince. Prince, unmute yourself.
Yes,
Prince,
sir.
Prince, what can be the advantage if the pollen grains are non-sticky?
They can be easily move from one place to another place.
Yes, definitely.
When it
This
is
is the
non-sticky.
main criteria for the wind pollination, easily movable. Okay, they should be light, so that if it is weighted, then it will not be able to transfer to a wider distance. And they often possess well exposed stamen. That means the exposure of the stamen should be proper. And large feathery stigma. Why the stigma is large and feathery? So that it can trap the airborne pollen grains. So what are the different features for the wind pollination? Definitely the pollen should be released in large quantity. The stigma should be feathery to trap the pollen. The pollen should be light and non-sticky. And the stamen should definitely be well exposed, so that with the help of the wind, the easy dispersal of the gametes will occur. So adaptation, wind adaptation is clear to all. Wind adaptation is clear to all. Okay, fine. Okay. Now comes adaptation for pollination if done by water. Now, pollination by water, the special technical term is there called hydrophily. Okay, this is a special technical term called hydrophily. And we know just now we discussed, anyone, can you recall the pollination by wind is called? Can you write in the chat box? Pollination by wind is called, just now we discussed. Pollination by wind is called. All of you write in your chat box. Very good, Khushi. Very quick. Okay. All the students must write this answer. Good, Niharika. Very good, Prince. Prince, spelling error. Khushi has immediately corrected the spelling. Shweta, spelling error. That's why I asked to write in the chat box. It's anemophily. Okay, Shweta, R will not be there. And Prince, it will be anemo, M-O, okay? Be careful with the spelling because maximum time anemophily, when it comes, we do error while writing the spellings, okay? That's why I asked you. Fine. Now, this wind pollination we already discussed. Now, this pollination which is done by water, some examples we will see and what are the different criterias. Both in the lower plants, water is regular mode of transport and distribution of some bryophytes and the pteridophyte is limited because they need water for the transfer of the male gamete. Then how it will be achieved? Just a moment. See, student, this for this we need to see the image of the flower also. This is the image of female flower of Vallisneria. The name of the plant is Vallisneria, and this is the male flower. And see, student, be careful. This is this line. Wait, let me change the color so that it will be easy for you. This red line indicates water level. Okay. This blue demarcation indicates female flower. And this pink demarcation indicates male flower. See, student, the location of the female and the male flower and the water level plays a very important role. See, the female flower reaches the surface of water by the long stalk, and the male flower are released on the surface of the water. They are carried by the water current and reach the female flower. That means the female flower are definitely at the surface level, and the male flower, those submerged beneath the water level, release the gametes, okay, and then that the male gamete or the pollen reaches to the surface to sit over the stigma of the female flower. So we will say that this plant is submerged plant, but remember the location of the male and the female flower varies. The female flower is at the top and the male flower is at the submerged part. The male flower releases a pollen grain, and then this pollen grain comes and sit over the stigma of the female flower, which is on the surface of the water. And definitely the transfer require the water current. Did you understood, student, Vallisneria? Vallisneria is clear to all? Because these are some of the concepts. With the help of the diagram, it become more clear to all of you. Okay, Shweta, given the remark. Niharika. Yes, I want the remark from all the students. Satyam, Khushi, Aman, Prince. Okay, fine. Good. Yes. Okay, I got the remark. Thank you. Yes. Good for responding. Yes. Next, you can see this is the image of the yes. This in seagrasses, the female flower remains submerged in water. Pollen grains are long and ribbon-like. They are carried inside the water and reach the stigma. Here, the opposite case is occurring. Just a moment. Here, opposite thing. In seagrass, you can see in this diagram. In seagrass, the female flower is under the water and the male flower is exposed. So from the top level, the pollen grain need to be carried at the bottom and reach the stigma. So understood, student, the two conditions regarding the Vallisneria and seagrass. In Vallisneria, the female flower was at the top, the male flower was submerged. But in seagrasses, the female flower is submerged, but the male flower are at the, we can say, at the top, and the pollens are hence transferred and needs the water for its transfer. Okay. Now see, what can be the adaptation for water pollination? The pollen grains definitely has a mucilaginous covering. Remember, students, since because the pollens are released and they need the help of water, so there must be a mucilaginous covering. The mucilaginous covering protect the pollen from getting wetting, so that it will not be wetted, and if it is not wetted, it won't be heavier. If it is wetted, then definitely it will settle down at the bottom. And most of the aquatic plants, they emerged above the level of water for entomophily or anemophily. The chances of failure of hydrophily, the water pollination, is great. Okay, that is why even it is not necessary that all the aquatic plants use the hydrophily. All the aquatic plants, they don't use the hydrophily, and that is why some of the example like water lily, the hyacinth, the flowers are exposed well above the water level, and the pollinators there are the wind or even the insects we will be talking about later on. So wind and water pollination are not very colorful and they do not produce nectar. So bright color requires bright color will be the attractor. Okay, so but the wind and the water pollination, they need to be so much attractive, because they do not because they will ultimately, they will not be producing the nectar, because if they are brightly colored, then only the bees, the pollinators will be attracted toward it. Okay, is it clear to all till this? Okay, fine. Just a minute. Okay. Yes. Okay, fine. Just a minute. Okay. Yes, I got the remark. Yes. Now comes the biotic agents, the animals. Okay. So different migratory birds, bees, butterflies, wasp, moth. So these are some of the example of the animals who are promoting the pollination, and the pollination by the insect is called entomophily. So three type of pollination we have come across. One is anemophily, then it is hydrophily, and now the insect pollination, entomophily. Be careful with the spelling of this also. The pollination by the insect, this is called entomophily. Okay. Now, what should be the feature for the insect pollinated flower? Definitely the most important feature for the insect pollinated flower is the flower should be large, colorful, fragrant, because it will attract the insects, and it should be rich in nectar. Otherwise, the insect will not go and sit over them. So nectar and the pollen grains are the floral reward for the pollination. Okay, the bees or the butterflies, they goes and sit over the flower only in search of the nectar, and in reward they are getting the pollen grains. So the flower pollinated by the flower and the beetles secrete the foul odors to attract these animals. Always remember this, because the beetle and the flies, they always require a odor, a pungent smell also, so that it will attract the animal toward itself. Okay. Okay. Students, we will keep our class till this, because just after a few seconds our class is going to end. Students, regarding the regarding your class assignments, you will go through the three type of pollination. The three, especially you will focus on the adaptation for the insect pollination, for water pollination, and for wind pollination. Okay, you will prepare this portion. Okay. 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 Thank you, students, for today's class. Thank you all.